Today we're going to cover 5 things you better know if you want to get into overlanding. Overlanding, off-road, or even outdoor recreation in general just went through a hockey stick growth period. So weird things happen in these hyper-growth stages. Generally, there's a lot of really cool innovation that happens, but then some really unnatural things actually happen as well. A lot of unproven companies and misinformed innovation comes to market. Dynamic equilibrium is what eventually sorts that all out. It brings us back to Earth, not in a bad way, but in a balanced way. But we aren't there yet, so you better buckle up. Overlanding as we used to know it is dead, and you need to know how to navigate this new, very crowded landscape. Okay, so let me give you some examples of what I'm talking about. This is pretty key stuff, so even if you're not shopping for these types of products, just pay attention because you're gonna learn something about what's going on with the market. I've got some recovery gear back here. So I've got a Yankum dynamic rope, that'd be the red one. In the middle, there's a white worn strap. And as you can see, they're very long. In fact, they're about 30 feet long. When you're doing recoveries, it's usually because a car is in a sketchy situation. And you don't necessarily want the recovery vehicle to have to go hang out in that same sketchy situation. So you tend to want your recovery gear to be long enough to be able to recover it from a safe place. There's a company that is really well known for making survival packs. And they do a great job at making survival gear. But they decided to kind of jump on the wave that is overlanding and the popularity of overlanding. So they decided to put together a kit that they're calling a vehicle preparedness kit. But this is a perfect example of where people are jumping into an area that's not their expertise. When you buy this kit is not cheap. It's $450. So if you're new to overlanding and you read it, you go, okay, I've got a shovel for digging out my car. I've got a recovery strap, so I'm solid on all my recovery stuff. And it's misleading. It gives you a false sense of security. This is the strap that they give you, this red one here. And it is very short. It's not even a car length. Anybody that buys this product should not feel safe that they have a recovery strap. You don't have a very usable recovery strap. Another thing that came in the kit was a shovel. This right here is about the smallest shovel I will take, but this is what they sent in there. And they said that you can use this for sawing, cutting. First of all, this saw blade is not actually sharp in any way. Yeah, imagine trying to use this to dig yourself out of mud and clay or snow and ice. I mean, sure, it's better than a hand. Man, I wish I would have caught that on camera. So I just took this outside because I was thinking, you know, it does market it as being able to use it as like for chopping things. So I just took it outside. I did 2 hits only to a log, not like a giant log, like just a round branch. And look at this thing. It's completely totaled. This whole frame here bent sideways, can't fold it up anymore. It's toast. It's a piece of junk. Okay, so what's my point here? I'm not just trying to bag on a company and say their stuff is really bad. That's why I'm not even saying the name of the company. The point is, there's a lot of companies right now that are seeing how fast overlanding is growing, and they want to jump in there and they want to be able to grab some of that cash. One example is there was a company that makes a battery-powered pump. They sent me one and they wanted me to review it. And I took it out and tested it because that's what I always do, I test things. So I aired down the tires on my Tundra 10 PSI per tire. So not even that low. Then I hooked the pump up and started airing the tires back up. Now, they didn't make off-road pumps in the past. They're just trying to jump into that overlanding scene and grab some of that cash. So after 2.5 tires, the battery was dead. This is not a product capable of even airing up your tires after you go on a dirt road. This is just simply something to have in your garage for like airing up basketballs, maybe airing up one car tire. That's it. That was all it was good for. So there is a lot of dangerous marketing out there right now. There's a lot of products that weren't made for overlanding that people are trying to force into that little puzzle hole and see if they can grab some of the money on these high growth areas. It even gets more confusing than that, because sometimes a company comes to exist because they're very innovative and they see products on the market and they go, you know what, we could improve on that. But the problem is, again, maybe they don't have the history or the background of overlanding and off-road. So they bring innovation that on the surface looks pretty cool, but then in practice, it doesn't actually work. Okay, so this is the tale of two tents. Tent number one was made by a company called Izun Stuck. Is it guess how you say it? There's like a new tent company, I swear, every day. They saw the dilemma that a lot of people want to have a tent that will sit in the back of your truck bed below the roof, nestled behind their cab in these short beds. iCamper, for example, has the SkyCamp Mini. That's a great tent. A lot of people have used it for that exact application. The dilemma is that's like a $4,000+ tent. It's extremely expensive. So the innovation was this company said, hey, we see the need for a tent that will fit in the back of a short bed that is a lot more affordable. It does not have a lot of frills. It has a pretty basic mattress. It has a pretty basic tent. It's $2,000, but it's perfectly small. It is exactly what the doctor ordered if you want what I would call like a barely there tent. When this thing drives by, half the time people aren't even sure, like, is that actually a rooftop tent or is it just a rack? And they can't even tell because it's that small. In this case, that's the type of innovation that's actually kind of refreshing, is to see somebody bring a product that actually meets a very specific need, and it meets that need without creating other problems. Okay, so remember, at the end of this video, I'm gonna show you 5 kind of key learnings that you should remember when you're shopping for gear. And this tent is the thing that brings it all home. This tent is what happens when an entire focus group that maybe doesn't understand overlanding designs a tent. So it's the clamshell design, but it's also relatively small. So it's not as big and long as some of the clamshells. And they address giving you additional space a little different way than most. They also gave you a rack on the top for mounting a solar panel. It's already there, which is really cool. Most tents don't come with solar panel mounting already. It comes with crossbars that can go on top of this, so you can store stuff on top of your solar panel without scratching it. It's got a nameplate. It has another nameplate on the side. It has ladder entries on all 3 sides. It actually clips down in both the front and the back, and I'm going to show you why. This is where this tent tried to do some innovation that was a little different than everyone else. By the way, inside the tent, all the fabric is awesome. The finishes are really nice. They put in like the blackout layer on the inside of here. So if you're sleeping during the day, you can sleep really well. It has a memory foam mattress that is pretty comfortable. This is all in all a very cool tent. The main innovation that they did though is when the wedge hinges from down here normally, you actually don't get the full length of your tent. You don't get to use it because the very end of your tent where your feet go, it gets so skinny back at that wedge that you can't actually lay all the way against the back of it. So that's why they end up having to make these tents a little bit longer. And when they make them a little bit longer, then they hang off the back of your truck more. And they were able to do that with this awesome scissor hinge, is what I'm gonna call it, because it essentially lifts up this back and gets you more room on the end of your tent. Like, it is a really nice apartment inside of there. Here's the downfall. This footprint is actually smaller than like the Top Oak rooftop tent. You've probably seen that in some of my other reviews. The footprint is smaller, yet somehow this tent weighs 225 pounds if you include the ladder. 225 pounds. So by the time you include yourself and this tent, on most vehicles, 1/3 of your payload is gone, if not more. Tents that are bigger than this usually weigh in at about 140 pounds. This one's 225. If you're overlanding like a Ford F-250 or a Ford F-350, then sure, you could handle this, but like, you can't stick this on top of a 4Runner. You can't stick this on top of a Subaru, obviously. But like, even in the back of like the Tundra, I would never want to use up that much of my payload just with a rooftop tent. This thing is basically like 60 to 80 pounds overweight. And to me, even though it's an innovative tent, and if you're looking at it and you're not lifting it up, it looks so shiny, it looks so nice. The mattress is so comfortable. In every way, it's such a great tent, except for they forgot that you're building a tent that has to go on top of a vehicle. They forgot what actually matters. They created a great product that creates another problem. Okay, so what's the point of all these examples? Here are a couple things that you should think about before you buy any gear. First up, innovation is not always innovative. Anytime you're buying camping gear, off-roading gear is almost always about trade-offs. So if somebody makes some side of the equation super, super fancy, it usually hurts the other side of the equation. So anytime you see something exciting and new, question, what am I losing because I'm getting this newer, fancier thing? Innovation is a shiny object that can entice people into bad purchases many times. Doesn't mean innovation is bad. It just means you need to understand what trade-offs you're making. You want to ask yourself, is this company new to this space? Just because they're new to the off-road or overland space, it doesn't mean their product is terrible, but it does mean that you might want to do a little bit more research, because a lot of people are just seeing how much money they can make. They're jumping in without really understanding the space very well, and they're making products that don't apply. A lot of products are becoming commoditized. So a lot of the products that were here at the beginning of the overland revolution are starting to have so many manufacturers making the exact same product that you're seeing the prices come down. And it used to be that if you bought like a mid-range product or even like a low-range product, it was probably trash. But that's not necessarily true right now. Think of things like power packs or even rooftop tents for that matter. There's so many manufacturers that they are starting to drive the price down. So if it's a really commoditized product at this point, you should feel safe at least exploring the mid to lower ranges of a product and see if you can find something that's still good. So on the opposite side of the equation are the bleeding edge products. These are the brand new, super innovative, there's never been anything like this on the market before products. Two things you should question when you're looking at those. First of all, are you comfortable buying that product if the parent company goes out of business? The market is really crowded right now, and eventually a bunch of these companies are probably going to fail, or they're going to get bought by other companies. And finding parts for some of these super specialized crazy things could get hard. So you need to understand bleeding edge products right now have inherent risks in this market that is getting very crowded very, very quickly. Whatever gear you're getting, whatever mods you're getting for your vehicle, do you understand the maintenance costs? And then the bigger question is, do you know who will do that work if you end up having a problem? This is a really big deal because people underestimate this all the time. They'll go and they'll get their truck lifted and they'll stick a lot of stuff on it. And now all of that stuff requires a certain type of maintenance. And it turns out there's a lot of shops that'll bolt on like a lift kit. But there's not necessarily a lot of shops in some areas that will do all the rebuilding of those rebuildable shocks or do all the maintenance for your ball joints and all that kind of stuff. Bolt-on shops are pretty common and maintenance shops are very, very rare. And because they are rare, they can get really expensive. Now, if you live down in Southern California, there's a million off-road shops down there. I live in Idaho, and where I am in the Boise area, there's almost none of them. There is only a couple, and even those guys are still getting up to speed. Like a lot of them started out as Jeep shops. So if I show up with a Toyota, they kind of know what they're doing and kind of don't. And you end up having a lot of errors and a lot of mistakes are made. So that's the other biggest thing. When you're shopping for gear, understand what you're getting yourself into on the long haul when you're picking out particular products. And if it is those bleeding edge, brand new, never before seen new type of shock or new type of this, just realize the local support for that type of equipment is probably next to nothing. Like you're probably on your own. So I hope these tips help. There's a lot of new gear out there. There's a lot of new gear that's cool and amazing. And then there's a lot of stuff that's just fluff. And I'm just trying to help you guys weed out the fluff. I get sent a lot of it. I test a lot of it. And like the stories I shared today, I'm always shocked at how far some of these products miss the point. So be careful and be wise.